Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warcraft Season of Discovery. So, in today's video, our guild is taking on Molten Core. We did this in the same night as Prince Thunderan, so I decided to record both and make a quick video for both of them. First off, we're taking on Lucifron, who is ridiculously easy, I'm not going to lie. He's very, very simple to deal with. You'll probably kill him in less than a minute as his health bar is pathetic. There's only a few things you really need to pay attention to, especially as a healer, depending on what you can decurse. So he has an AoE curse and an AoE magic effect. Both need to be dispelled as soon as possible, although they're not that important. The magic effect will last for about 10 seconds and deal moderate damage to anyone, and he puts it on every raid member, so just try and dispel as much of it as you can, and then heal through the rest. And then the curse will last for about 5 minutes, which increases the energy, mana, rage cost of any of your abilities by 100%. So again, try and dispel as much of it as possible, but as you'll notice in this fight, he doesn't last longer than a minute really, so it wasn't that much of a difficult problem for us. He does also come with 3 Naga adds, which you'll have to deal with. They all do a mind control, but as long as you deal with mind control, it's pretty simple. And yeah, that's Lucifron. That was how quick it was. He went down really, really quickly. Nice free bit of loot there. Now, a quick thing to make you all aware of is that we're running this one on Heat 2. We decided to come here to gear up a few of our ults, and we are also gearing up one of our off-tanks as well. So this is only Heat 2, so we're not getting the maximum amount of gear from each boss, and we're also not going to be doing the new additional boss, which comes on Heat 3, which is the Molten Core right at the end. But to be honest with you, that fight is a real piece of cake, so... well, at least the way we do it, and yeah, it's not that much of a fight, to be honest. Now, I was thinking about cutting all the trash fights between bosses out of the video and doing what I did with Blackwing Lair and just having it go from boss fight to boss fight, but the trash between bosses here really isn't that massive, so I've kind of just decided to keep this one in. I'm just going to clear out these packs of core hounds before we get to our next boss, which is literally right in front of us. I think after we've killed these 2 packs, we're on to the boss fight. Okay, next up we have Magmadar, a Corehound boss, who, again, very simple and straightforward. This boss, there's only a few things you need to really pay attention to. First of all, he has a big kind of AoE fear effect, which I think it's everything inside 90 feet, something like that. It's a very big range, so pretty much everyone will get hit by it, and he does it every 30 seconds. So if you have shamans and priests in your group, make sure that you have fear wards and tremor totems up to try and avoid tanks, healers, and pretty much anyone from being feared. He does also come with a couple of core hound pets as well, which will need to be off-tanked away from the boss, but they aren't really that much of an issue. He also has a frenzy, which happens every 20 seconds. It's an enrage ability, so if you have hunters, make sure they're using tranquilizing shot to remove that. And then he will occasionally have these kind of fire globs that fall from him and cause major damage to people. But again, he doesn't have a huge health bar. He will die very quickly if your DPS is good enough. So yeah, here we are, another boss with some more free loot, which we can't really complain too much about. And that is Magmadar. Now with Magmadar, what will happen after you kill him is very shortly a water elemental will spawn. Sadly, he died right on top of the water elemental, so we have to kind of walk inside him. And an easy way to get to the third boss is to speak to that water elemental and teleport back to the entrance of Molten Core, And then as we're running across here, we're going to drop down onto this tiny little ledge. Be careful you don't fall into the lava, because it can kill you if you don't know how to lava jump, or if you don't heal yourself properly enough. And we run along this way, and this is kind of our shortcut to the third boss, and I really don't like the third boss as a healer. He is absolutely horrible. I hate him so much. He's a pain in the ass. But we managed to take him on, and I believe we took him down on the first try. In this attempt, anyway. We did actually try doing this a few separate times before this current run that we're doing, and we had to find some more people as a couple of the pugs that were with us decided to leave. So this is technically our first attempt on him, even though we did try him a couple of times when we first came here this evening. Okay, so you can see a 2-minute pull timer there. The reason why we set a 2-minute pull timer is that for some of these fights we like to pre-pot a greater fire resistance potion, which allows you to absorb quite a heavy amount of fire damage. Oh, someone's trading me. I believe they want some water. There's the problem with Phase 5. We just got a new level of mage water, and now everybody wants it. There we go. So yes, so we always pre-pot a greater resistance fire potion. So pre-pot basically means that you take the potion before the fight starts, so that the cooldown starts before you start the fight, and that your potions are ready to use during the fight again, so you can make a couple of uses of them. And the buff that you get from the fire potion lasts for an hour, so yeah, we always pop them and then wait 2 minutes before we decide to pull. And we have also decided to run off and pull these 2 Fire Lords or Molten Destroyers off to the left here. We mainly did this for the rogues so that they could get their full combo points and swap the target onto the boss so that they can start the fight with a full bar of combo points. Just a little bit of a boost for them. So, this is Gehennas. Is it Gehennas? Yes, that's it. I always get him confused with someone else. And he's a pain in the ass for mage healers and basically anyone that can decurse, so druids, you're also included in this. It's a horrible fight. I hate it so much. It's a pain in the backside. And the reason why is his curse and his abilities. So his curse, Gehennas' curse, hinders healing of enemies in range by 75%. So the whole raid basically takes 75% less healing. So when he does his curse, you need to make sure that your druids and your mage healers if you're running with the head rune of advanced warding, which every mage healer should be, because it allows you to also remove magic effects as well as curses. You need to make sure as soon as that curse goes out that you remove it as soon as possible. Prioritize the tanks and the healers straight away. Now, with Gehennas, he also comes with a few adds as well that your off-tank will need to pull away from the boss. Now, you'll see here that I'm stood a bit too close to them, and our poor off-tank pulled them a little bit too close to me. Now, these adds will do an AoE stun effect, which is a pain in the backside because I was stood too close and got caught by it, so I wasn't able to decurse as quickly as possible. So we had a few seconds of a few people having the curse on them straight away, which was not great. So you'll also see that I'm not really healing very much as well. Now, Gehennas himself also has a few abilities that can be a pain in the backside. First off is this rain of fire that you can see, all of these fireballs that are falling down. This does quite a heavy amount of damage, so make sure that when if your raid add-on tells you that you're stood in the fire, or if you see that you're being hit by it, make sure that you get away from it as soon as possible. And then he also does a Shadow Bolt ability, which does heavy-ish damage to people. One thing you'll notice here is I'm almost killing myself, because as I'm decursing I'm taking small amounts of damage for doing that, so I'm basically just constantly taking damage whilst decursing. I hate this fight. I hate this fight so much. Gehennas is horrible. We did actually try this boss a couple of times before we came to it this time, and before we found a few more raid members, and we did wipe to it a couple of times because it's Gehennas, and Gehennas is a pain in the ass. Trying to deal with the rain of fire with decursing and everything else is just a pain, and then obviously with me being stood a bit too close to the adds when they were pulled off to the side, I got caught by the stun as well, which was also not great. Not my best boss, honestly. I really suck at doing Gehennas. Eventually I will learn how to do it properly, but now that we're on to Phase 5 and Molten Core is technically considered old content, hopefully I won't be doing it too much. But yeah, that was Gehennas, and again, a rather small health bar, so it should go down fairly quickly as long as you deal with the curse and make sure your ranged and healers aren't stood inside the Rain of Fire. Okay, next up we have Gar, he can be a bit of a pain in the backside if you don't deal with his adds effectively. As you can see, he's surrounded by, I can only see 3 at the minute, but I believe it's 5 of these Fire Sworn adds. And there's a few different ways you can deal with these guys. Most people decide to have their warlocks banish 2 of them throughout the fight, or banish as many of them as possible throughout the fight, so that the healing load on the off-tank is lightened by not having 5 adds smashing him in the face at all times. What we decide to do, or the tactic that works for us anyway, is to put a skull and a cross on 2 of the adds, and then we kill them first, and then we focus on killing Gar. Gar himself can be a bit of a pain, and he can be a bit of a check as well for your fire resistance. For Heat 2, you want to make sure that you have at least 96 fire resistance, so that you don't get one-shot by the raid ability, which is the Overheat, I believe it's called. If you don't have the fire resistance, this ability basically just, as soon as you take any fire damage, you get one-shot by it. It's a bit of a pain in the backside again. And on Heat 3, it's 199, I believed. But with Gar, he has this ability called Anti-Magic something, Anti-Magic Shell or Anti-Magic Zone. Basically what he does is he basically removes a buff from each raid member in an area around him, but he's pretty much raid-wide, and I'm not sure if it's random or if it picks a specific buff to remove, but if you're a class that has anything that increases resistances, so Mark of the Wild, Mage Barrier for mages, they will be removed, so you have to make sure you have a little bit extra fire resistance for this fight, just to make sure that you don't get one-shot by the Overheat debuff. If you're just on the border of fire resistance, I believe I'm running with about 134 unbuffed, and this is Heat 2 where you only need about 96, so even if my Mage Barrier and stuff was to get removed, I'd be absolutely fine. So here we are, we're pulling the boss. Most of our ranged and healers will be stood against the wall, because with his Fire Sworn, when they die, they will blow up, and they will knock a whole bunch of people back. So we try and position most of our raid against the wall, so that if we do get blown up, or if the adds do blow up near us, that ad won't blow us all back miles away and we have to run back into position. It's just to help our DPSs and our healers so they don't have to continually reposition themselves. As you can see there, I tried to blink away from the group and I still got hit by the knockback, so I'm having to run all the way back here. Now the Fire Sworn do also do extra damage, which is called Separation Anxiety. It's a pretty funny name for an ability, and they will hit very hard if they're too far away from Gar. I believe it's about 5,000 damage, so you need to be really careful about how far away you pull them from Gar, otherwise they'll start hitting like an absolute train. And they also have an Immolate ability, which is about 800 fire damage, roughly, and then it'll leave a ticking damage every 3 seconds for 21 seconds, so it's, again, not too difficult to deal with. Gar himself will also put a magic ability across the whole raid, which is called Magma Shackles. It's supposed to be something, a mechanic that you deal with as well as the knockback, so if you get knocked back by the ad, by his ads, then the Magma Shackles will slow you down and take a while for you to get back into range. So if you have any magic dispellers, again, mages with your advanced warding, it's another fight for you to dispel. As you can see, I don't focus too much on dispelling, as the damage itself is quite high in this fight, and I prefer to just focus on trying to heal people up rather than dealing with the decurse or the dispelling, as most of our range is stood against the wall, so they're not being knocked back too far. But as long as you deal with those 2 adds and you keep topping up your tank and your off-tank, this fight isn't that difficult. It's more about dealing with the 2 Fire Sworn, or dealing with as many Fire Sworn as possible before you start focusing on Gar. And once you've dealt with them, whether you banish them, whether you kill them, whether you just decide to ignore them if your off-tank is a beast and has tons of health and damage mitigation, it's completely your choice. But once you've dealt with those, killing Gar itself isn't that difficult. Again, it's more of a fire resistance gear check, so as long as you've got high enough fire resistance, you should be absolutely fine. Right, everybody's favourite boss fight now. This is Baron Geddon. So, for this fight we have a slightly different mechanic or slightly different tactic to most other guilds that do this. But again, this is the one that's worked for us in the past, so we don't really feel that much about changing it. Now, we are back in the room where we killed Gar. Now what we do is we clear out the trash around Baron Geddon, we have the raid gather in the room where we kill Gar, and then we have one of our hunters use a pet to go off and pull Baron Geddon through into this room. Because Geddon, what he does is he patrols along this kind of pathway that has a boss on either end of it, I believe. So we just pull him through into this room to give ourselves lots of empty open space in order for us to basically handle his mechanics quite well. Geddon has a few different annoying abilities for both melee and ranged players to pay attention to. For melee, he has an Inferno ability, which is a 10-second pulse. It deals like, I think it's a pulse every second over the course of 10 seconds that deal quite heavy fire damage that hits, I believe, harder and harder every time you get hit by them.
5, 4,
and then I believe on Heat 3 as well, after he's finished that, it might not be Heat 3, it might just be a Season of Discovery mechanic, but after the Inferno has finished, he will leave a pool of fire on the ground, so you will have to keep repositioning Geddon every time he does that ability and leave the pool of fire on the ground. Melee, you'll have to be aware of that ability as well, try and make sure you're away from him, or that you're popping resistances and potions and all that kind of stuff to make sure that you're not getting hit by it. As you can see, we've just sent off our hunter's bird to go and pull the boss and drag him back through to us, so we'll probably be starting the fight in about 20 seconds. And then his main mechanic, which every player has to deal with. I don't know if tanks have to deal with it as well. I think it might just be melee DPSs, ranged DPSs and healers. But his Living Bomb ability, which is a bloomin' pain in the backside. It still acts the same way as it does back in the original retail version of Geddon and in Classic. It still puts a timer on top of, I think, 3 or 4 random players. And then after that timer expires, they will blow up, get shot up into the air. So they'll have to be healed, and they'll also do quite heavy damage to anyone nearby. So what we do is we try and keep everybody, all of the range, stacked in front of the boss, and as the boss is repositioned from Inferno, we also have the range group move with him. Here he comes, you can see him in the little tunnel there, just there. He decided to cast Inferno in that tunnel, so we were all stood there waiting for him, and he just stopped. And he's just put a Living Bomb on a few people. Now, again, I believe in Season of Discovery, that Living Bomb, when it blows up, will also leave a smaller pool of fire on the ground. As you can see there, one of them just blew up in the group because no one realised we had it, and there is a pool of fire next to us. So, luckily enough, it didn't deal that much damage to most of us. I believe most of us are playing on our main accounts, or our main characters, which already have a pretty heavy amount of fire resist, so it didn't hit us that hard. But it can be dangerous if a few of them go off in the group at once. So yes, we start Baron Geddon on this kind of corner edge of the wall here. The melee and the tank will drag him around the room whenever he does his Inferno and leaves that pool of fire on the ground. The range will stay in front / to the side of him. Whenever the ranged get the Living Bomb, what they're supposed to do is run it over to the wall on the opposite side of Geddon. The same with the melee as well, they'll move to the left, go up to that edge of the wall, let the Living Bomb explode, leave the pool of fire there, and then go back to their original position. He does also leave a magical dot on most of the group. I don't know if he puts it on every single player. He might do. It's called Ignite Mana, which will deal... it removes 400 mana and deals about 400 minutes over the course of 5 minutes. You can resist this ability if you have more than 250 fire resist, which most of us don't. So there is... there you go. He's just put it on everyone there. It doesn't hit every single player, but it does hit quite a lot. So again, magical dispellers, you'll have to make sure you remove that as soon as possible. Mages, another thing for us to remove in another boss fight. we have a lot of decursing and dispelling to do in this raid. It's one of the reasons I don't like it that much. At least the first half. The second half of the raid gets really cool for mage healers, at least I think so anyway. But yeah, make sure you're removing that dispel, that magic effect from all of your casters and your healers, just to make sure their mana doesn't get burned away. And that is pretty much Baron Geddon. There is one last ability, which is at about 2% health. He will do an explosion, I believe it's called Armageddon or something like that, where if you don't kill him within the time limit of that If you don't finish him off in that time limit, I believe it's 10 or 20 seconds he casts it for, he will do a massive explosion that will kill every single player. So yeah, just make sure that you save a couple of big cooldowns for the final 2% of the boss so that you can burn him down in that time frame. We didn't struggle with it. I don't think we've ever really struggled with it that much, to be completely honest. But yeah, that's Baron. Still the same pain in the backside. He still didn't drop any bindings of the Windseeker for us. We have one or two players in our guild who have one side of the bindings, and they've only ever dropped once. So it's one of those things for our guild that we've rarely ever seen, and we do this raid week on week since it came out. So I kind of feel sorry for those players. They really, really want to get Thunder Fury, but they just can't because those bindings just won't drop. Anyway, on to the next boss. Okay, next up we have Shazra, or Shazza as I like to call him, because he's a pain in the backside, and he's the one I always confuse with Gehennas. They all look the same, they're just slightly different colours. Anyway, in a fire raid like Molten Core, we always have to have a couple of bosses that are slightly different from the norm, and this is that boss fight. Shazra is an arcane caster boss, so he's got a few different abilities you need to pay attention to, which can be a bit of a pain in the backside. He is the mage of the group. So the main ability you need to pay attention to is his Arcane Explosion, which deals about 1,000 damage, and he casts it, I think it's about every 5 to 10 seconds or so. He does it quite often. It's his main damage ability, and it's quite a wide AoE effect around him, so you'll have to pay attention to that one. Make sure that you have is it a magic resist potion or an arcane resistance potion, I believe it's called. That will help you quite a lot in this fight. Obviously, if you have any kind of inherent arcane resistance, that will also help. As an arcane mage, I have 20 as standard, and I believe we also get some extras from Mark of the Wild and other stuff like that, so I already have a little bit of resistance against it to start with. There you go, you can kind of see the arcane effect pulsing out from him. Okay, so he does also put a curse on everyone, so yet again, mage healers and curse dispellers or decursers. That's another thing for us to remove. Now this curse isn't too difficult to deal with, but it does make you take double magic damage for 5 minutes, so if you're stood nearby his arcane explosion and you have that curse on you, it will deal double the amount of damage, so be careful with that one. Now he also has a counterspell which cancels any magic for about 10 seconds, so whenever you see the warning come up saying that he's about to do magic reflect or his counterspell, stop casting your abilities because it will cancel those, and I think it'll even reflect them back onto you. Now, the main other abilities that he has that pair with Arcane Explosion is Gate of Shazra and Blink. Now what he'll do is he will randomly blink around the room, and then when he blinks, he will also leave an image of Shazra, the few that you can see around me here. I'm having to reposition myself because I'm getting hit by their arcane explosions. The damage radius of Arcane Explosion is a bit wider than the spell effect, like the actual effect on your screen, so be careful when you're repositioning yourselves and where you stood, because those images will also cast the Arcane Explosion for the same amount of damage, and he'll leave one of those images every time he jumps. He basically jumps to another player with his blink, leaves an image there, and then the tanks have to pull him back to where they originally had him, so you will need to keep repositioning him and yourselves throughout the entire fight. Can be a bit of a pain in the backside, I will be honest. He does also teleport forward as well sometimes, which I believe doesn't leave an image. I believe he only leaves an image when he blinks, and I believe the image that he leaves is a new mechanic they brought into Season of Discovery. But yeah, it can be a bit of a mess, this fight. We did end up losing a few players throughout the fight due to him blinking around and the arcane damage and stuff like that, so try and stay spread out from each other. If you notice that he's blinked somewhere, try and keep away from the position where he blinked to. Pay attention to where his images are, and try and make sure you're keeping away from them, far away enough that you're not getting hit by the arcane explosion, and you should be fine, and you should take down Shazra. It's always been a little bit messy for us as that fight, but we've never really wiped on it that much. I don't think we've wiped at all on the times that I've done it with this guild, so it's a pretty solid fight, but once you've got the mechanics down, it can be pretty simple as well. Okay, next up we have Sulfuron Harbinger, one of my more favourite fights in this raid, because you don't have to worry too much about dispelling in this one. Woohoo! Finally, we don't have to dispel every 2 seconds. Arcane mages can actually heal properly in this one. Right, so for this fight he comes with 4 additional adds. We have marked up each one of them. The reason why we do this is because we will need to make sure we have assigned interrupters on each of those adds, because they can heal each other and the boss. So we have assigned interrupters for stopping those heals from going out. I would also recommend having a couple of backup interrupters as well, just in case any of those assigned ones do die. It's quite rare that they will, but just in case, you never know. They will also leave Shadow Word Pain and an Immolate effect on DPSs as well, so you can interrupt, you can dispel those if you really want to. In this fight, because those 2 abilities don't deal a huge amount of damage, I elect to just heal through them rather than dispelling them constantly. And then Sulfuron Harbinger himself will have a couple of buffs/debuffs. He will put his kind of demoralizing shout, which reduces melee damage of melee characters around him, so be careful of that one. You can't do anything with it, it's just an effect that he has. And then he also has a self buff, which is increased attack speed but slightly less damage. Again, can't be dispelled off him, so it's just something you kind of have to deal with. Make sure that you're keeping those tanks and melee DPSs topped up. And that's pretty much it for Sulfuron Harbinger. We try and keep them all stacked together so that we can make use of cleave and AoE effect abilities to take him down a bit quicker. But yeah, Sulfuron Harbinger isn't that difficult, it's more of a DPS and a healing check. And I really like healing this fight because I can keep swapping targets, constantly pumping out DPS and keeping my beacons up on the 2 melee groups so that I can keep them topped up whilst dealing damage, and also pay attention to interrupting as well. It's just a fight where I can kind of... I'm a bit of a hybrid in this fight, which means I can DPS and heal and also interrupt. I quite like this fight. It's a good fight overall, in my opinion. But yeah, that's Sulfuron Harbinger. Next up is Golemag the Incinerator, and I screwed up on this fight. I screwed up really badly because I was a little bit too eager on healing right at the start of the fight, so I pulled aggro on one of the core rages and they ran up and chomped my face off, as you're about to see. Chomp. He one-shot me. I was so eager to start healing that I pulled aggro straight away. Healer aggro. It's a pain in the backside. But yeah, I did that, and I'm a stupid. Anyway, Golemag has a few abilities you need to pay attention to. Don't pull his hounds too far away from him, as they have separation anxiety, which will cause the fight to reset if they're too far away from Golemag. So try and keep them just to the left. But also, don't try and kill them either, because once they go below 50% health, they'll just start healing back up again. So don't bother killing the core hounds, just have your off-tank pull them off to the side and focus on killing Golemag. Golemag himself will have a few different abilities to pay attention to. One of them is a Pyroblast ability, which deals about 2,000 damage and leaves a small dot afterwards, so just make sure you're topping up players if they get hit by that. In Heat 3, he will also gain an extra mechanic, which is these kind of falling rocks from... I believe he throws them out from himself and they kind of land on the ground. You can see this little spell effect on the floor that helps you avoid them, but obviously because we're on Heat 2, we didn't see that in this fight. He also dies really quickly as well, so you don't have to worry too much about it. And then he also has a couple of extra little abilities to pay attention to. Like, he will buff his core hounds and they'll do a bit more damage, so again, make sure you're keeping your off-tank healed up. But yeah, it's really not that difficult of a boss fight. Again, it's another DPS check. Just make sure you kill him. About 10% health, he will also do an Earthquake ability, which will buff himself and his core hounds. His core hounds will also gain more aggro towards DPSs instead of the tank. So yeah, it's just kind of a DPS check for his health bar. But again, Heat 2, and we took him down very easily. So we didn't really have to deal with half the mechanics he has. And this is another fight where I'm not going to bother cutting the trash in between the 2 bosses, as after this pack right here we will literally be on to the next boss, which is Major Domo Executus, although he hasn't spawned yet because we forgot to use our dousers on some of the runes, so we've got a couple of them going off to douse the runes that we missed. Anyway, Major Domo Executus isn't that difficult of a boss fight, although there are a few mechanics that you will need to pay attention to. First and most obvious of those mechanics is that you don't actually want to kill Major Domo himself. There's no point damaging him whatsoever, as he puts an Aegis on himself, which absorbs about 30,000 damage. It ricochets 250 onto melee attackers, or melee attacks, and it also heals him as well. So don't bother trying to kill Major Domo, it just won't work. He does have a few different abilities, like he has a shield that he puts onto his guards, which you will have to break. There are a few different shields as well. There's a purple shield which does about 100 damage protection and reflects onto their attackers. Also does a white shield, which means that all magic attacks have a 50-50 chance of reflecting back onto the caster. They also teleport a target to the lava pit that's nearby, and you will need to get out of that lava pit as soon as possible. It does deal a large amount of damage, and try and get healed as soon as possible. And he does also have a blast wave, which is just an AoE fire attack, which hits at about 100 feet, so you can't avoid it. Now his guards are the more annoying ones, as there are 6 of them. And for the last 2 guards that are alive, you will need to kill them at roughly the same time, or at least try and make sure that they die within a small amount of time, so 10-20 seconds of each other. The reason why is that the last guard alive will constantly grow in size and damage until he dies. So yeah, just make sure that your second to last one isn't killed within, say, and then the last one has about 50% of their health remaining, otherwise it could be quite deadly for your raid. Now with these guards, there are some of them which are similar to the Harbinger, which they will heal other adds and the boss. Well, they won't heal the boss, obviously the boss isn't taking any damage, but they will heal the other adds, so you want to make sure you've got assigned interrupters on those guys to interrupt them. We pretty much put interrupters on every single one of them because the others have abilities as well. They have a Shadow Bolt, they have a Blast Wave, they also do about a Fire Blast, which is about 1,000 damage as well, so they do hit pretty hard, do these adds, so you'll want to make sure that you've got assigned interrupters to interrupt as many abilities as possible, and you'll also want to make sure that they are killed fairly quickly within each other. What we do is we keep all of them stacked together. I think we have one main tank on the boss, on Major Domo himself, because Major Domo will be attacking and doing things throughout the fight. So you want to have one tank on Major Domo and the other tank on the adds themselves. I think we even split the adds as well. I think our main tank has Major Domo and a couple of them on him, and then the off tank has the rest of the adds, whilst the melee DPSs and the assigned interrupters are dealing with interrupting the heals and whatever else that they can do. For ranged, especially on Heat 2, this is just another fight where you have to just pretty much just stand still and nuke. Swap between the targets. If you notice that one target is on 90% health when the rest are on about 20 or 30, then have a few people swap over to that one target to bring them down as soon as possible. There is quite a lot of damage that goes out throughout this fight, so healers, make sure you're focusing on your AoE heals and topping people up and basically just trying to keep everyone alive. We do have a Disc Priest who's making very effective use of Power Word Barrier. On Heat 3 there is an extra mechanic where there is a flame shield that's put on top of one ranged player, and every other ranged person has to get inside that shield before a blast wave goes off, otherwise it hits incredibly hard. But again, you won't see that because we're not doing Heat 3 on this one. But yeah, it's another one of those fights where you just have to handle all of the adds. Again, with assigned interrupters, make sure you've got a couple of backups in order to interrupt any heals that might get missed if their interrupter is dead. But other than that, tank and spank all the adds, kill them all off, and make sure you try and kill the last 2 within a short amount of time of each other.
Stop attacking.
There isn't anything to dispel or decurse aside from the reflection. If you notice that people are getting hit by magic effects or curses, it is a reflect from the shields that Major Domo is putting on the adds. So again, you can remove those if you want to, or just heal through them. But yeah, other than that, Major Domo isn't that difficult of a boss fight. Make sure you douse... Oh, no, you don't have to douse his rune. Once you've killed his adds, he will run back to his starting location and start doing a bit of RPing and talking. And then you have to make your way over to the final boss, which is Ragnaros. Okay, here we are at the final boss fight. Now, with Ragnaros, before he actually spawns in, there is a bit of role-playing and a bit of chatting done by Major Domo. You have to talk to Major Domo in order to get him to summon Ragnaros, and then I think it's about a minute or 2, and then the fight will start. Again, if you're using something like Deadly Boss Mod, you can see on the right-hand side of my screen there is a timer bar for when combat is going to start. And yeah, Ragnaros is a multi-phase fight, so there are several different things you need to pay attention to. There is a melee knockback, which reduces threat. Tanks need to pay attention to this, and so do melee users, and Melee users need to be careful because I believe that knockback can also break your weapons. I've never actually seen it myself because I've never melee fighted this boss, but or melee fought this boss. But we usually just leave melee people in range of it, but I would be careful with the threat reduction or the aggro reduction, as he can sometimes turn to another melee DPS and splat them with his big hammer. There is also, I believe it's called Hammer or Hand of Ragnaros, which is a ranged attack that he uses. He basically slams into a ranged player with his hammer. It will do a large knockback to that ranged player, and it will also do it to anyone within quite a radius around that player. So this is one of the reasons why you need to make use of the kind of circles around where Ragnaros spawns, just to make sure that not too many people are knocked back by that attack if it does happen. I believe I get hit a couple of times by it in this fight, so you will see that happen. I get knocked up into the air and then I just try and blink back to where I'm stood. Healers, try and make sure that you've positioned yourselves into a good position so that you can hit the majority or most of the raid if you can do. We try and spread them out to the point where at least everyone is getting some sort of healing throughout this fight. There you go, that's the Hammer or Hand of Ragnaros, where he's just knocked me up in the air and he knocks back a couple of people next to me. It's quite a large radius, so picking your position to stand in this one can be a bit of a pain. Some of you will have to deal with the fact that you might get hit with it. But you do want to make sure you stay away from the tanks if that does happen, so they don't get knocked up. I'm pretty sure I'm stood far enough away to not hit them, but I suppose we'll find out throughout this fight. At about 50% health, Ragnaros will submerge into the lava, and that will be phase 2. I believe that's going to happen very shortly. What you'll need to do is you'll need to have most of your raid gather up together, because what will happen is a lot of fire elementals will spawn, smaller ones, that you'll need to gather up CC, so slow them down, freeze them in place, stuff like that, and DPS them down. And you'll need to do it quite quickly, because I believe it's after about 20-30 seconds Ragnaros will then reappear and start, and the second phase will start, or the third phase will start. So yeah, just try and group people up, heal them up throughout the damage that they're taking, and make sure you kill off these Sons of Flame. In phase 3, these Sons of Flames will have a kind of multi-death grip ability where they'll grab a whole bunch of people and suck them into one position, and they also have an AoE effect which removes mana from casters. So again, try and stay away from them as much as you can if you're a caster with mana, especially if you want to make sure you don't run out of mana before the end of the fight, because several attempts on this boss I have gone in that phase because I'm stood too close to the Sons of Flame. When he reappears, although for some reason in this fight he didn't actually submerge, or he did submerge and then came straight out again, so he's just been stood there the whole time looking at us. It was very strange. Usually he disappears into the lava and then comes back out at the end of that phase, but I guess something must have bugged out on his animation there. Once he reappears, he will go back to doing the same abilities as he did in phase 1, so again, this isn't that difficult of a boss fight. Make sure you keep your range away from each other. If you see the big hammer attack that knocks people away, get back into position, try and get out of the lava as soon as possible. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to Ragnaros. He's not that difficult of a boss fight. Positioning can be a bit of a pain in the backside. There might be a couple of DPS who are either too far away from healers to get any kind of healing or anything like that, so try and keep in communication with each other if you are too far away. If you're a DPSer and you are too far away, you might want to try repositioning a bit closer so that the healers can heal you up. But there isn't a huge amount of AoE damage going around constantly throughout this fight, so even if you are too far away, it shouldn't be that risky. Maybe if you have any defensives or healing potions or anything, have some of those on hand just in case. But yeah, this is the Ragnaros fight. Really not that difficult of a fight, at least for us anyway. We've done it several times, so we took him down quite easily. Didn't lose anybody, which was quite a smooth kill for us. And as usual, he didn't drop any of the loot that I wanted, because that's what Ragnaros does. He doesn't drop nice loot for us, and he didn't drop any bindings either. So yet another week where our poor melee DPSs who want Thunder Fury still can't get it. But yeah, that is Molten Core from start to finish. Obviously, like I said at the start of the video, there is a fight that we don't have, or we haven't got in this playthrough because we didn't do Heat 3, which is the Molten Core fight. It's literally called the Molten Core. So if we do have a Heat 3 run, I will try and record that and get that one up as a separate video just so people can see that fight if they really want to. It's not that difficult of a fight, but it's not featured in this one, I'm afraid. But yeah, thank you everybody for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this one, and I shall see you in our next video.